Yeah.
We are all gathered here for, you guessed it, another episode of Men or Books. And
Men or books.
we're still as rowdy as always.
Yes.
And apart from the last episode, which I don't know how many people have actually watched, because for some reason a lot of people just decided to actually watch this thing. Like a lot more people than we expected.
We got like 47 views on episode 1.
Yeah, so apparently instead of having 0 people watching, apparently we have a few, but it was largely requested that everyone likes the unicorns, so we've kind of brought the unicorns into the
We have
staple
brought the unicorns out.
um okay,
People
but
like unicorns. Like,
yeah, I know, but also
what can we
Keaton,
say?
I was actually gonna say I have a question for you to like start off this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yes.
How do your plushies in your room feel if I ask them, a bit of a challenge because
Yes. I guess it depends on which plushie because obviously there's
okay, or just
all
all
of.
of them, like all of them as a collective. How would they feel if they were suddenly challenged?
Okay, I'm sure there'd be upward challenge.
Because funnily enough, after the last episode last week, um several people, okay, it was actually 3 people, but that's more than I thought, that several people were
It
gonna
is
message
several.
me.
It is several.
That still counts as several, and it's a lot more people than I expected, but several of these people, aka 3 people, all decided that after listening to that episode, they were like, wait, so how many plushies does Keaton have? And they all raised me their rooms full of
Okay.
plushies, and they've challenged you as to who has the most plushies. And yeah, we have some people who watch this podcast who
Okay.
have a shit ton of plushies. As in,
Okay.
we have basically, I think people are trying to plan to take over the world with plushies, and I
No,
think
no,
we
no, no,
might
no,
we
no.
might need your plushies to help us defend
Okay.
because
Okay. Give me like 3 seconds. Hold on.
don't worry, guys. He's just we're gonna start.
Okay.
Okay, this
So
is the plushie army starting to come
hold
out.
on. Let me like.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
That's
Okay.
Nemo. Tigger.
Oh my God, it's Tigger.
Fuck. Okay. This is a lion. Nondescript lion.
Nondescript lion.
Nondescript teddy bear. Hold on. I'm getting the Valentine's Day ones.
Don't worry, it's see, but gotta have the love. Gotta have the love in there. Gotta spread the love of
Okay.
plushies.
Okay. So we have those guys. Then we have Toucan.
Oh my
Fuck.
soul. This entire screen is just gonna be filled with plushies.
How do I was trying to figure out how to like balance it. Okay, is that one?
Toucan.
Toucan. This is a little Simba one.
This is just hilarious from my view. Like I could just see this wall of plushies.
This is a Valentine's Day bear I got like 3 years ago, I think.
Is that even gonna
Oh
stand?
shit! Oh
No.
shit!
It's fine. There's a wall of them, and there's still more, isn't there?
Okay.
Oh God. Oh dear. It was very entertaining, but I think we've got the point of the plushie question for
Yeah. Just to
the
be clear,
episode.
I'm just
Yeah.
gonna keep them
Yeah,
here
yeah.
for this
Just keep
episode.
them here the whole episode. That's the whole.
Hold on.
This is the episode. It's a plushie episode with unicorns and plushies. Okay, but anyway, maybe we should also start off with this week's man. We
Yeah,
gotta.
we've been doing this for like
Keaton,
20
would you like
minutes.
to introduce this week's man?
Okay.
Please?
Okay. So, for those of you that are our age or a little bit above, you should be familiar with the High School the Musical series. Very, very famous series. Something that I have not watched. Don't come to me in the
Something that
comments.
I have watched and something that I have no intent of watching again. Let's
Yes.
just put
So,
that out there.
this is representative of all your anger for me not watching High School Musical. Okay. So, um, so we are reviewing one of the quote unquote most attractive men from that movie. The wonderful, the effervescent, the slightly wax sculpture looking Zac Efron.
Yes, we're hoping our editing skills can put a picture up on YouTube.
Yeah. If
People, if we suck at editing, the YouTube people are getting the exact same experience as the Spotify people having to look him up if you don't know.
Yeah,
But
just Google him. Yeah, if you don't know who Zac Efron is, you can Google him.
But he is our man for this episode, and he is
Yeah,
going up against an interesting book which we read and which we hinted at in the first, well, episode 0, should I say. And that book just happens to be a book called When You Were Mine by Rebecca Serle. We'll probably also put like the cover up
that will have a thing up there.
because we don't have a
So,
physical copy. We have ebooks and
yeah,
Kindle books
y'all
version.
save the trees. Save the trees.
Save the trees.
Also, Calvin's a Kindle boy. Okay, so for some background and context as to how this book got on our radar,
Yeah.
about I think what just before prelims last year.
No, it was actually after. It was actually after.
Was it?
Believe it or not, it was after finals. We watched
Was
it
it
in.
after
We watched this in December.
Oh shit. Okay. So at a certain point, Calvin had sent me a trailer for a movie that had an interesting premise, which was Romeo and Juliet, but told from the perspective of the girl that Romeo left,
Yeah. So
named
yeah,
Rosaline.
yeah. The entire title of the movie was literally just Rosalind, and I caught it online, and I thought, and I didn't know that it was actually going to be about the throwaway line from Romeo and Juliet where Rosalind is referred to as Romeo's ex lover, should I say? And so that whole movie kind of took like a comedic spin on the idea of what happened behind the scenes and how Romeo broke up, or I guess in that movie cheated on on
Yeah,
Rosalind and went
Rosaline.
with Juliet. But the movie was really good. It was funny. Okay, so it wasn't like the most
It was
mind
really
blowing
good.
thing. It was like a really
No,
funny popcorn kind of flick, right?
yeah, no, your house was much to your mom's dismay in the office. Your house was very loud with just the two of us
Yeah,
that day.
but to say it's for people who like Shakespeare, this movie was very enjoyable because it tied into the story of Romeo and Juliet so nicely and put a very nice comedic spin on it. And although it did have like continuity issues and like people forgetting props in different scenes, like props just disappearing from scene to scene, it actually has a pretty good cinematography, and overall the film was great. But we're not here to review
Yeah,
review
we're
the
not
film.
here to remove the. So basically, the movie Rosaline was based very loosely. I would just like to imply this
Very
very
loosely.
very loosely on a book, the book that we're covering today, which Calvin mentioned, which is When You Were Mine by Rebecca Serle. And we decided that for episode 1 we would do a review and put When You Were Mine up against Zac Efron and see which of the two is sexier.
Yes, and we'll get to our end rating of who is because we already know in our heads, but you're probably gonna
Yeah,
figure out throughout this episode just
yeah, who's better?
by our feelings for this book. Because as we say, we liked the movie. The movie was great. This book was interesting.
The book was a book that I have
The
read.
movie essentially borrowed the premise from the book because we also liked the premise. The premise
Yeah,
sounds fantastic. The movie borrowed the premise and decided let's do this differently, and let's just say the movie is quite a
let's
bit better than the book.
let's do it differently. It was let's do it better.
Yeah, let's do it because this book is quite something else, and so we're going to
Oh,
get into
I'm
that.
so sorry. This is getting so hot. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
maybe we should just give Keaton a moment to get all the plushies off of him, and then he can give us a summary breakdown, Keaton, if you want to do like the short summary of what this book is.
Okay, so a brief. I'm going to keep the corgi. So
Yeah, summary,
yeah,
go.
yeah. So just for reference, the movie Rosaline took place in medieval Verona, Italy, like
Yeah,
Romeo and Juliet did.
it's literally just
When you were
Yeah, it's literally like the movie took place literally in the exact timeline that Romeo and Juliet takes place. This one is does not.
yeah,
The book does not.
yeah. The book takes place in, I would like to say, early to late 2000s California.
Yeah, we know it's California because it's like like the setting I think is in Los Angeles somewhere. But we don't
That's
know about the
outside of
exact.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, we don't know the exact timeline, but considering the book was published in 2011, we're guessing it must have been the early 2000s is where the
Yeah.
setting is.
So there's a lot of references to like that kind of technology. Like there's iPods,
Yeah.
and I think I'm just purely going over off the fact that they were iPods.
Yeah, no, I mean to be fair, I mean I didn't catch anything else, but the fact that obviously because iPods are no longer iPods like
Yeah,
died in popularity like mid 2010s, I'd say. So like
yeah,
we're assuming this must have been the early 2000s.
yeah. So early 2000s, and it's less of a romance story and more of a 2000s teenage high school story
Very much
in
so.
the sense that everything takes place around a high school setting with high schoolers and Starbucks and getting drunk and parties and all of that stuff. And so the premise of that like really, really like deep, like sophisticated romance is kind of lost in the
Yeah,
fact that it's
we'd
very
also
much
yeah, we'd also like to point out that all
teenagers.
the characters in this book, like this is a high school. This is like for a high school for rich people because everyone in this book is basically rich and
Yeah,
snobby. So
everybody.
this
Yeah.
isn't this is definitely nowhere like
Okay.
the as everyone's thinking it is, but very modern, very rich.
Yeah, and we also I just want to mention one thing before we start is none of this is meant to attack the author
No.
or Zac Efron. Please don't
Yeah,
sue us.
yeah, no, please don't sue us. This is all for commentary and for fun. Look, I don't think anyone's gonna be
Yes.
suing us since we're such a little channel episode podcast thing. Yeah,
We don't
but
know. We don't know.
this for people, this is just also because we like to also note that this was the author's debut novel in
Yeah.
2011, and so we. And so obviously we haven't read any of her works thereafter, but we're assuming that obviously she's gotten a lot better over time, and this is, I mean, like, it's tough to do a debut novel, right? So we don't want to tear into this like we're tearing into the author. This is
Yeah.
just critique of the novel, and authors, to be fair, are usually, authors getting critiqued a lot is quite commonplace. So we're assuming
Yeah.
that Rebecca, I'm sure she's probably not listening to this, but
Yeah.
yeah, but
Rebecca Serle, if
this
you
is
are
just
listening to this.
this is just for fun commentary and critique. Okay, so Keaton, let's
Okay.
continue with the summary.
So let's summary. So basically, the main character in this book is, of course, Rosaline. It still follows the plot line of Rosaline watching Romeo and Juliet fall in love and her being left behind. But instead of the like classic Romeo and Juliet storyline, it follows Rosaline's point of view, going on a date with Rob, and then her cousin Juliet coming to town, taking Rob away from her.
Oh yeah, and by the way,
Uh,
everyone, Rob is Romeo. For some reason, the author kept
yeah,
the names Juliet and Rosaline, but
Rosaline.
Romeo got changed to Rob. We don't know why, but for some reason.
Yes,
So if you hear
yes.
us speaking about
So
Rob or Romeo, they're the same person basically.
yes, I think I just broke the color of this. Okay. Anyways. Anyways, so yeah, there's a bunch of teenage like high school stuff that happens. Like there's a school dance, there's a party, but for the main storyline purpose and like the for the summaries like purpose, the main point is Rosaline and Rob had a date. Rosaline was hopelessly in love with Rob. Rob met Juliet. Juliet, quote unquote, seduced. Rob will explain the quote
Yeah.
unquote seduced when we go into a deeper delve of the plot, and then some some very very interesting shenanigans ensue that lead to a very interesting ending.
Yeah, we'll probably just get through this whole thing. But for like comparison to actual Romeo and Juliet, the only characters that ever pop up, like for example, like Tybalt and like Mercutio and like Paris are not a thing in
Yeah, they're
this
not there.
in this thing. The only characters that
Paris is
matter,
mentioned.
yeah, the only characters that matter in this thing are Rosaline, uh, Juliet, they're cousins, and then there's Rob, who's Romeo, and then there are their parents, so there's a bit of, so there is technically a family feud, except it's very different and it's very
Yeah, it's a very strange
complex.
family feud.
As in,
Yeah.
basically,
So
just to sum up the family feud, for some reason, Rosaline's parents are supporting. Oh yes, by the way, they're called the Capulets, not Capulets,
yeah, there's
Capulets, and then the Montagues are the Montagues, right? So for some
yes,
reason,
they she just removed the U's from their names
yeah,
for some reason.
and so anyway, so for some reason, Rosaline's parents, we'll explain it later on maybe. Rosaline's parents basically the Montagues and the Capulets were in a race for senator of like, or governor of a certain of the region or whatever the heck. And Rosaline's parents, who are also Capulets, instead of supporting their family, they ended up supporting the Montagues, and so for that reason, Juliet and her family kind of went off to the other side of the country. And later on in the book, she comes back, and so basically the whole feud is that the Montagues and the Capulets don't like each other, but Rosaline's Capulets family do like support the
Yeah,
Montagues, so it's very confusing. But that's
yeah.
the general
So
rundown of it.
instead of there being a feud between, yeah, so the feud is still there,
Yeah,
but now there's an extra like layer of like support from the
Yeah.
Capulet
Because
that
obviously,
isn't like
because
the
obviously
Capulets.
in actual Romeo and Juliet, it's not even said who Rosaline is. For all we know, Rosaline isn't
Yeah,
even related to the Capulets in any way. But this one just decides that they are related, they're cousins, and for some reason their family is also now split. So it's just
yeah,
families doing family things. But anyway,
yeah. Anyway, so we're gonna. Oh yeah, by the way, we're about to start the proper like full on like scene by scene analysis of, and review of this book.
yeah,
So if you, for some reason, if you do want to read this book, you can stop listening now because obviously we are going to spoil the book. But
yeah,
if you
obviously
don't,
that's given. We just spoiler
yeah, I
alert.
know, but
Sorry.
yeah, spoiler alerts. But like, come on, some people, but like, yeah, if you do want to read this book and then you want to come back to listen to our commentary, you can stop the whatever you're listening to this on now and go read the book and then come back.
Yeah.
Please come back. Please come back.
Please come back. They might hate us after like they go read this book and they're like, God damn, these idiots are making me read this book.
But if you don't want to read, which I if you don't want to read the book, which I completely understand,
Oh
having
yeah,
read the
this
book,
does
if
this
you don't
no
want to read the
this
book,
this is yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, this is not gonna be a book that we recommend to most
yeah,
people, but
I unfortunately,
we'll get into why. So shall we start off?
okay,
I mean, because I will say that the prologue is actually pretty interesting because the prologue is just the prologue makes very bold statements. And basically, the prologue is
yeah,
very short; it's one page. It kind of goes, "So Shakespeare was wrong." And so I read the prologue and I was like, "Okay, this is actually going to be pretty interesting." Because the moment you make that bold statement, you like really feel like that this is going to get into the meat of things. But
yeah,
basically, after chapter one, which is called Scene One, it's set out like a Shakespeare play.
like a play.
There's 5 parts, and they're set into scenes. But chapter one, yeah, suddenly it's not what the prologue it's
Yeah.
not what the prologue was going to get into. So
So, so we're introduced to Rosaline. I think she just woke up, and her best friend Charlie is in the room with her on the first day back to school of their senior year.
and Charlie is also short for Charlotte, just so you know that he's not a boy. Because
Yeah,
also for the first few sentences, I also thought it was a
I
guy,
was
but
thinking.
it's Charlotte who's now Charlie. There we go.
Yeah. And upon waking up, Rosaline is immediately bombarded with questions about a certain boy next door character from Charlie.
Yes.
Boy next door character that Rosaline is extremely infatuated with.
And that just happens to be no other than Rob, aka our Romeo, for the story. And it's
Yes.
just very cliched with the boy next door kind of
So,
love story.
yeah. I would just also like to say, unfortunately, his full name is not Romeo. As much as
I
I
know.
really want
We
it
really
to be,
wanted it to be
is
Romeo.
no, it's unfortunately it is Raw. It is Robert.
Yeah.
So, but yes, so Rob, it is the end of summer and they're getting ready to start high school again. And Rob has been at camp the whole year, the whole summer. And Juliet's had like a couple of interactions with him, like over email, but they haven't really talked as much. But we get kind of introduced to it early on that they're best friends. And also that just before summer started, just before Rob left, Rob did this thing where he, if I'm not mistaken, grabbed Juliet's face, looked into her eyes,
Yeah.
said that she was beautiful, and then left.
Yeah. So we will say that the one critique that we've had for this book is that there is a lot of telling rather than showing throughout this whole
Yeah,
book. As in, it's all taken. So it's from the first. It's a first person viewpoint from the viewpoint of Rosaline. But the problem is she does a lot of telling and goes into like long
yeah.
stories. Every character that gets introduced in the book, basically she then like injects an entire like backstory to this or like
Paragraph
a
of
memory. So
exposition.
it's literally just say every character that gets introduced, it's like here is a memory from when I met them or what they've done in high school or whatever the heck.
Yeah,
But early on in these chapters, the two important characters that we first get introduced to are her friends, which are Charlie and then Olivia as well. Because then Charlie
yes,
and Rosalind then go off to the first day of school, and then
yeah.
they obviously meet up with Olivia at.
And we would also like to mention just before they leave, Charlie and Rosalind catch Rosaline's parents making out in the kitchen in their
I know.
bathrobe. And this is the first interaction with their parents. And I would just like to say, their parents are the freaking best. I love them
No,
so much.
yeah, no, don't worry. It's weird. Their parents aren't mentioned a lot. They come back more near
Yeah,
the end of the book than they actually do. In fact, for the most part, for the middle of the book, in fact, I think we literally only get to see them making out in the kitchen as Rosaline and Charlie leave, and then we don't hear from them ever again until like the end of the book when stuff starts
yeah.
like really happening. Um,
Okay.
but they get to
Uh,
school, they meet up with their friend Olivia, and let's just say, so like we say, these people are rich, and these people are
yeah, they're
very
rich kids.
they're very snobby. As in, we have, but also because they're beautiful guys. Okay, they're hot.
Yeah, well, okay.
They're yeah.
We need to make this clear. Two of them are beautiful. One of
Oh
them
yes.
is okay. So the way that Olivia and Charlie are described are classically beautiful. Charlie has red hair and porcelain skin and is like
Such porcelain.
gorgeous,
Her skin is so porcelain. Apparently, it's almost translucent.
translucent, which slightly concerning, but I
We're gonna look
digress.
past that. We're not. We're
Yeah,
not.
we're gonna look
We're not.
past that.
We're not. What are the care people like the Donna?
Estheticians.
Yeah, yeah. We'll
We're
leave
not
that up to them.
estheticians.
Yeah, we'll leave that up to them.
And Olivia is rich and has brown hair,
No, she has blonde hair technically.
blonde hair. She has
Rosaline has
blonde hair.
brown hair.
Rosalind has brown hair, and she has very large boobs. And because of
Yeah.
that, do we
Keyword on
say
the
boobs, or do
boobs,
we have to say
okay?
like
Because
mammary?
yeah, and we say boobs. The reason why we use this word specifically is because this is the exact word the author uses in
Word
this
that they
book.
use in the author. We're just letting you know. Please don't think we're like objectifying women or
No, we
anything.
are using this because it was also the first. It was also the first thing that kind of took me out the book because
Yeah,
this is the first mention of breasts, should we say, throughout this
yeah,
book, right? And it's so funny just because the author is like, well, Rosaline, I guess, is describing Olivia for us, and it just goes, she's like your typical attractive dream girl, big boobs, blonde, and I was just like, what? I was just like,
yeah.
okay,
It was a very random just introduction, and obviously Rosalind is introducing her two friends who are very conventionally attractive, and then she introduces herself and her level of attractiveness, which she describes as not particularly
yeah.
beautiful, but not particularly ugly either.
Yeah, so she's very much she's not very much not like other girls because let's point out that
Yeah,
their friend group is supposedly the popular group at school, right? And she's quite uncertain as to how she ended up in this popular group because she says she doesn't have the same attractive levels as her friends do, but she's also blessed with wisdom. Like apparently she's smart.
yeah.
Okay, and we
she's
say
she's the smart one.
apparently because it is told many times throughout the book that people in this book are smart. But do they do any smart decision making
Anything?
in this book?
No,
No,
no.
not at
Okay,
all.
and something else we should also probably introduce are the love interests. So we introduce Rob, but there are two other love interests that we need to talk about, and that those are Jake and
Ben.
Ben.
Yeah, and then
So
we'll also get into later how there's a guy who like the guy called Len who comes in later, but we'll get
yeah,
to him later on.
we'll get to that just now. But Ben is Charlie's younger brother, if I'm not mistaken, or I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
they mentioned like the
No, I
exact
actually don't think they mentioned their age, but I'm assuming younger.
the younger brother, right? So, or they might be twins, who knows? But because I know Charlie does, Olivia has a younger brother, but yeah. So, anyways, um, there's also just side note. There's a whole theme about bagels in this
For some reason.
book for some reason.
I feel like this
Uh,
must be a rich person thing though, because they buy
yeah,
bagels like every day
I'm
before
just
school.
letting you know. I don't have. I've
And
had like a
Starbucks, and
bagel in
Starbucks.
my life,
The
and
scene first
Starbucks.
wakes like the very first scene when Rosalind wakes up is with Charlie and Starbucks. So clearly this has to be a rich people thing
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
don't know why you'd have Starbucks and bagels before you go to school every day.
To
It's very
school.
bizarre.
Like they refuse. Like Rosalind refuses breakfast from her parents. To in like she really wants the bagels.
She really wants the bagels.
Okay. Anyways, so Charlie is dating
Jake.
Jake, who
Yes.
she has a very troubling relationship with, where it's very on and off, and it's never really mentioned why. Because every time Charlie mentions why they've supposedly like broken up, it's always just like the stupidest reason. Like I was sad and he wasn't sad with me, so I broke up with him last weekend, and now we're
Yeah.
back together. It's very strange. Uh, and if you're wondering if Rosalind has anything to say about that, she doesn't.
No,
and
not the whole.
that becomes a theme in this book where Rosalind really should say something,
But
but
doesn't.
she doesn't.
And then we
and
also, yeah, so then we have Ben, and so like you said, Ben is like Charlie's younger brother, we're assuming, and Olivia is, well, she eventually goes on to dating this guy. I don't know if they start dating at the beginning, but I think
I think they were dating over the summer.
yeah, I think they started dating throughout the summer or whatever the heck. Now the weird thing here we have here, so like Charlie is supposedly the very outgoing person of this friend group, right? And let's just say this book talks. It's all about girls talking about guys. It's like all this book cares about, all these girls care about are guys, 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 guys. And as we say, all the girls get these descriptions that make them beautiful, whatnot. The guys are basically just we don't like because we don't know what any of them look like. I can't tell you what any of the guys look like.
Yeah,
They're sexy because they surf. So they're sexy
yeah,
men. That's all you know about them. They're sexy men because they
yeah,
surf.
yeah. That if you're looking for hair color, eye color, facial shape, any sort of nothing. Like
No,
if you
nada.
asked us to pick them out from a lineup, like
Nada. So basically, just substitute what you would assume is a conventionally attractive man, and there you go. That's and they're all the same. Like all the guys are so dead. Their personalities are all so blatantly the exact same. Like they're
they're
so
all
one
dead.
dimensional.
Um,
And it's funny
they
because
have no characters. They have no
no
characters. Men have no characters in this book, and it's going to be something that we talk about later when we do talk about some of the troubling parts of this
aspects.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But also because then what's also funny, like I said, Charlie's the very outgoing one of the group, and for some reason, so the author tries to make this book as if like sex is like it's very odd. Like I don't quite know what the author was trying to do with sex in this book. So there is no direct sex scenes, but obviously all the girls talk about sex and whatnot. So Charlie is the one who's, so we said, the more experienced one out of the three, and she, for some reason, is very highly concerned with her friend's
yeah.
virginity. For it blatantly says, like verbatim, one of the quotes from the books is that like she is very concerned for Olivia's and Rosalind's virginity for some
For
very
some
bizarre reason.
godforsaken reason. And
And
we should also, it does
yeah,
come
and
up later in the book
yeah, no,
that
we'll get through the whole yeah
virgin stuff.
the whole virgin stuff and all the weird
Yeah,
shaming and what etc. But
yeah,
basically, all you need to know is that Charlie, she kind of is experienced and wants, she's like, this year, girls, is our year. We're going to get laid. This year, we're
yeah.
all going to get laid. And then character consistency, because let's say Olivia is apparently in this book religious, right? And so it's described that she is trying to not have sex because she wants to save herself for marriage or whatever that. And yet, for some reason, she flirts with math teachers. She flirts with
Everyone,
everyone. She flirts with
everyone.
the PE teacher. It just does not make
It
any
makes any
sense.
sense. And yeah, something we should also mention that does happen in this book. So, okay, so the girls have all met up at school and they go through their school day. There's some assembly or whatever, and then they go to they've just finished like I think first and second period, and they go to lunch. And something that Olivia mentions while she is at lunch is the reason that she is flirting with her maths teacher is because she's flunking calculus.
Yeah.
Um, which again, it's one of the plot holes in this book is or it's just like one of the things that doesn't really make sense in this book is it's their first lesson. Like I don't know if she's planning
Yeah. And
to flunk calculus.
as we say, the author also frames it as these girls are very smart. They all have ambitions of like getting into Stanford and whatnot. And yet throughout this book, everyone is just apparently failing subjects. So
Yeah,
how anyone is supposed to be having ambitions of getting into Stanford when Rosalind basically later on starts flunking bio because of her whole drama with Rob. Olivia
yeah,
apparently flunks maths and whatnot. It's very bizarre. There's just basically character from the author tells you something and then the character does something entirely different. There is no
highly different.
consistency between
It
what the
is
author
wild.
says and what the character does. So it's pretty irritating because they don't
Yeah, it
do what
is.
they're supposed. Like it just doesn't work because it's like very conflicting. It's like who should we believe,
Yeah,
the character? Because the whole point is you want to believe the character and not the author, right? You're supposed to be immersed in the story, but the author keeps saying something and then the characters do something completely different, so
yeah,
it
I'll see,
doesn't
like,
work. It's just it takes it out
yeah,
of the immersion.
yeah, and then I think at this point we also get Rosalind's first like verbal interaction with Rob, like during lunch.
Yeah,
The guys come over and they start talking and stuff. Which it's also the first interaction where we get with Len. who's going to be kind
Yes.
of pivotal character in the
Yeah,
story.
so we should just say at the beginning, Len is framed as this guy that no one likes at school for no reason in
For no
particular.
reason.
Everyone just hates him. He's supposed to be a bit of a prankster. Like he doesn't work particularly hard or anything like that. He's the only one who doesn't really want like have these at the beginning he doesn't seem to have massive ambitions or anything, and he's there. But the way the author framed it, like he had a bit of a setup at the beginning, which kind of made us go, this guy's gonna have a deal later on, and he does. So he's a
Yeah,
bit predictable. When he comes up in the book, he becomes very predictable. But we'll leave him for now.
yeah,
He's just know that there's apparently this really weird guy who everyone hates at school for no reason, and he's in the background for now.
yeah. He's in the background for now. Yeah. So all the three guys, Rob, Jake, and Ben, and the three girls, Charlie, Rosaline, and the other one,
I love you.
Lydia. They sit down together for lunch and they're talking, and Ben and Olivia are getting like super flirty,
No, no,
and
that that
Jake and
that's also the thing. Olivia's supposedly saving herself for marriage, but they make out at school
isn't
constantly,
she
and
like sitting in his lap or something in
every
that one?
opportunity, even like later when we get to the dance, they're just making out. So once
Yeah,
again, no consistency there for some
yeah.
reason.
Uh, and genuinely, I can't remember. Does Rob ask
Yeah,
Rosalind out then? Yeah,
yeah. Rob asks Rosalind out, and so then later that night they go on a first date, should we say? Although Rosalind is she's very weird because she's like, no, he's not my boyfriend. No, we didn't have anything. Nah, there was nothing between us. So she refuses to like tell everyone that yes, these are my true feelings. Like deep down, like her inner monologue, she knows that she likes this guy, and it's obvious that he likes her in the beginning. So it's like
yeah.
why
So
she
like, what
doesn't
was
just go. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. But yeah, so Rob asked Rosalind out on a date, which Rosalind freaking uh she's like her mind is blown. She's like on the top of the world. So she's having a great time. And then she goes to biology, and she meets her lab partner for the year, who is in fact the wonderful, the always charming Len.
Len. And we say charming because rarely in this book he
Yeah,
is the only charming character. But for now
he is the
he is
only character that
for
has
now
any
he's
sort of like,
annoying, y'all. Get that straight. According to
yeah.
the author, he's annoying. No one likes him. We
According to
don't
the
know why.
author, we have not like seen anything that makes Len seem like a horrible person at all. But everybody hates him, and so we have to hate him now. Okay?
Yes, so
Okay.
hate him, okay? You hate him now, right?
Yeah.
Now that we've
Uh,
established that.
yeah. So Rosalind is pushed off in bio, and the only thing that's keeping her together is the fact that she's going on a hot date with Rob
Mm-hmm.
that night. And just after school, she ends up going to, I think they call it SRC or SCR or something.
Yeah,
Like,
it's apparently they're essentially like it's a little mini restaurant down the road from like school or whatever the heck where all the girls apparently go to after school or whatever. Rich people stuff because I know
yeah,
everyone goes to a
everybody goes to
restaurant after
restaurants
school,
after
right?
school.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they go there, and then Rosaline basically tells, spreads the news that hey, I'm going on a date with Rob tonight. Well, she never frames it as a date. She's like, I have a
Yeah.
thing with Rob
Thing
tonight,
with
or
Rob.
whatever the heck.
Yeah,
And
whatever the heck that is. And
naturally,
then they also,
Charlie's very like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my
oh my
god.
God, they're getting laid. And while they're there, after Rosalind breaks the news, they also start planning a back to school dance
Yes,
that week's Friday.
because they're all part of SAC or whatever. It's like something like
Yeah,
Students Activities Committee or something like
or
that.
something. And basically, they really want to throw a dance to celebrate the start of the year, and everybody's going to have dates, and it's going to be great. And the only person that really seems into it is Charlie.
No, but there was also
Everybody else,
and the only responsible, and there's another girl randomly called Lauren. She's apparently like who runs it, and she's the only because in the when they go to set up the dance later on in the book, Lauren's the only one who shows up to Seb,
yeah,
and everyone else just ditches her. Like apparently one girl set up the entire like
entire
dance,
dance by herself.
but yeah, but also because. Let's make a back to school dance. I've never had this before. Like, I don't know if that's a thing
Yeah,
in America, but like, seriously, a back to school. It's the
back
first
to
week.
school
This is
dance.
the first week, and we're gonna have a school dance on Friday. Yeah, very.
back to school dolls.
Because I don't know why. It seems very bizarre, but anyway, so that happens.
Yeah,
And then, but that's only at the end of their first week of school. And so then I
yeah.
guess like Rosalind then goes on this date because
Um,
I don't remember if there was anything else. We'll say that the beginning of this book is slow. It is
it's so slow. This is like,
painfully slow.
well, this is like the first three chapters of this
Yeah,
book. All of this is the first three
yeah,
chapters.
no, you spend so much time in the school. And another terrible thing about this is this book suffers from severe white room syndrome in that it's like there's a school, we know it's a rich school. We know Rosalind lives in a house, upstairs is her room. But no one actually like it's never
Like,
there's nothing
wait,
to explain what the place looks like, and so you kind of just like having these people floating around in your head, but you're not too sure. You just put them in like a stereotypical restaurant or stereotypical house,
well,
stereotypical
oh
school.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so yeah, if you're like, there's no like concept of an actual town that
Yeah.
surrounds them. It's kind of just like places that people go to.
Yeah, no, this distance also makes like no sense
No
in,
sense.
in this thing. Like the author also has like zero in this book has zero grip on time as well. Because like we will
Yeah,
say, it's described that Olivia takes 4 hours to get ready for school. Because obviously all these girls put on makeup and whatnot, and she also then drops her brother off to school, and then she goes and buys bagels. Right? Their
bagels, and then
school,
she gets
yeah, their school starts at 7:30 in the morning. So this girl is supposed to be
getting
getting
up
up
at
at
like
like
three in the
3
morning
a.m. in
to
the
get ready.
morning.
And y'all, this wasn't hyperbole. Like, they were being serious when they said she spends 4 hours getting ready.
No,
Like,
like this wasn't like she wasn't being. She was like Olivia spends 4 hours getting ready
4 hours getting
each
ready in the
day.
morning.
So this girl wakes up at like 3 in the morning to get ready for school. Everyone.
Yeah.
So
Anyways,
time makes no sense. Yeah, but
time makes no
anyway.
sense. But anyways, it is later that night, and Rob picks up Rosalind to take both of them on their hot date. And you would think, you would really think that anything interesting would happen on this date.
But no. They go to an
No,
Italian restaurant and then they go to like some cliffside and look at the stars. It's very
yeah, they
cliche,
go to a cemetery
but also like the thing
to
is
look at the stars.
cliches aren't necessarily a bad thing, but it's if you can
That
do them
thing.
well. And the problem, like if you're trying to set up a romantic scene, once again the author still has white room syndrome, and so like it's never described beautifully at all. Like it's just we go here, we look at the stars. It's like, oh, great. So you just
Yeah,
picture the most cliche. I think she relies on cliches to give the reader's description. She kind of goes, well, the readers know what this cliche setting is, so they'll be able to fill it in. But I don't want. I want to know what makes it
yeah,
unique, right? But no, it's just very cliched, boring date that they go on, to say the
yeah.
least.
So they go on the date. They end up kissing at the cemetery where they're looking at the stars. Which, by the way, guys, if you're ever looking for a place to take anyone on a date, just take them to a cemetery so that you can look at the stars together.
And I mean, also, if you really want to spice up the date, start reading like some Stephen King at the cemetery, and then I can promise you, you will have an interesting date. In fact, you may not be spending a lot of time in that cemetery. Let's say that.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that this all happens. Rosalind gets home and she goes to bed. That's
Yeah, and then
that's it.
nothing unique happens because once again, it still goes through very slow the next day by day, and so now like they're all huggy a bit more at school, etc. And so we're kind of gonna skip all this crap because like it just goes on useless
Yeah.
stuff.
So
Rosalind
the next
continues her
day,
project with Len and Bio, etc., etc.
yeah.
Stuff just
So
goes on.
so the main thing that happens the next day is, one, Rob is getting a little bit more handsy with Rosalind and she
Yeah.
likes it. And the second thing is, at the end of the day, she finds a newspaper
Oh
with the
yeah.
headline that her cousin's family are coming back from Los Angeles to their small town in California.
Yeah. And basically, it's a big thing because they're a very famous family. Because since they were running for governor, whatever, they're rich, and Rosaline hasn't seen her cousin Juliet in a long, long time,
Long
basically.
time,
Because there's
about
eventually,
about
I
what,
think there
11
was
years?
also in yeah, I think it was also like in this section where they had a brief flashback. It's like the only
Yeah,
flashback that occurs in the story, which is very out of place and bizarre. But there's this brief flashback to when Rosaline and Juliet used to be like very best friends, like type of things, cousins, and so they used to hang out a lot. But then one day, obviously, when the drama hits that the families are running against each other, and Juliet's family is deciding to support the Montagues instead. The entire family dynamic changes, and they're having a Christmas or something like that. And Juliet decides to like snap Rosaline's Barbie doll or whatever, and shit
Yeah,
happens, and then that's the last time she
yeah.
sees of
So
Juliet.
this is also something that happens that is very explained very well. But according to the author and according to Rosaline, Juliet and her were best friends almost literally a week before this. And then they end up going to their house just after they moved to, I think, Los Angeles because Rosaline's uncle's running for senator there. And Juliet just becomes the biggest like bitch you have ever seen in your
Yeah,
entire life.
like
Like,
complete 180 flip. It's like her parents held a gun to her head. Right, you will be a bitch, you
yeah,
little
it
shit.
is.
Be a bitch to
It
your
is
cousin
wild.
now. Yeah, exactly.
Um, so that happens, and it's
It's
that
there.
it's never really like Rosaline doesn't really say about how she feels about it. It's
No,
just kind
she
of
has like no.
added there.
She's just like, okay, that happened. Like, yeah, it
Yeah,
just tells us. It doesn't even like show us her emotions at all. It just like tells us this is the flashback. This is what happened. This is why. It was basically just to tell us why Juliet was gone,
yeah,
and that was it. That
yeah.
the
And
Rosaline has no feelings towards this at all.
Rosaline, and this is something that I when we were talking about it while we were reading the book. Something that I mentioned a lot is that these characters don't really seem like characters. Uh,
No.
they they don't really seem to have any emotion other than like the stereotypical like horny and angry.
Yeah. And look,
And
yeah, look, I get the teenagers are supposed to be just horny and angry, but the author doesn't like. So the author, I feel like the author, as we say, every character gets like a whole weird random backstory spiel, and so I feel like the author was like trying to give her characters depth, but in a telling manner. In that she was like, right, I gotta make these people seem more dynamic. So she was like, humans, we all like a lot of things, right? So it's basically like, right, this is Rosaline. She likes this.
yeah,
Here's Charlie. She likes this.
this,
Since
this,
they
this, this.
like a lot of things, they therefore must be pretty deep characters because they've got a lot of things going on for them. But in fact, they are not. They are just. It's just a list. They are basically just character sketches with a list of things they like and do not
Yeah.
like.
So it's very hard to figure out exactly what these characters are thinking or feel, other than what they tell us that they're feeling, and especially Rosaline as the main character, the fact that she bottles up a lot of her emotions and doesn't say anything
Yeah,
about
no,
how she feels a lot.
yeah, it is in a way
Yeah,
detriment to the story because, like, obviously characters can bottle up, like that's natural. People bottle up in real life, but the fact that the only character in this book who has emotions because we have her inner monologue, so the fact that Rosaline is supposed to be like the only character that can give us that emotional like tension in this book, the fact that she's bottled up really doesn't help to this. Like,
yeah,
it's in fact gives it like it's to the detriment of the book essentially because it just adds like nothing to it and just it makes her a bit of an unreliable narrator in a way
yeah,
because she kind of like denies absolutely everything. Like she's like, no, Rob and I aren't boyfriends, and at the end of the book we'll see like she's kind of like, nah, this. She's just very like
yeah,
denies everything. So it's
yeah. It doesn't really help like connect with the main character and like allow us to trust her enough to follow her like plot and storyline about all of this.
yeah,
And just so that does really lead to the story feeling like it lacks a lot of like depth.
yeah, no, it definitely is. So like the emotional, if you're looking for like an emotional straighting hot love romance story. This
Yeah,
isn't
stick to the actual
quite
Shakespeare in
getting.
that sense.
In fact, as we say at the end of the book, it does actually get slightly better at the end of the book. We will say
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
but the best emotion out of this book comes with the actual tragedy at the end. Because okay, so let's say that this does vaguely follow Romeo and Juliet in that Romeo and Juliet are going to die, right?
yeah. They
That's not a
do end up
spoiler.
dying.
Everyone knows how that
Yeah,
goes. That
like
can't be a spoiler.
it's
You're
gonna die.
500 years late on that spoiler. So the only emotional like capacity that comes from this book is in the tragedy itself at the end, and we'll
Yeah,
get
the
there. So
tragedy of the
in the
dead.
meantime, shall we get to the dance? I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. Let's. Okay. We also just want to mention one thing. When after Rosaline sees this newspaper telling her that Juliet's family is coming back to what was it, San Bella Zero or something? I think that's the name of their town or
Yo,
something.
I don't know. Or that could have been the name of the restaurant. I don't actually
Oh
know.
yeah, I don't know. Okay, it's something. Their town.
It's somewhere in
She
L.A. That's what we know.
Yeah, it's somewhere in LA, and she goes home and she sees that Her parents, Rosalind's parents, and Rob's parents are very deep in conversation in their kitchen,
Yeah.
and she's never really seen them like this, so she does really wonder what's going on, but she kind of just plays it off as nothing happening, and then she ends up going to bed.
Yeah.
Um,
And then boring
yeah,
stuff happens for like the next week of school. We literally sit through several more chapters of this,
it's
slowly
like
going
boring
through
stuff,
school life
and
until we finally, I guess, get to the dance because that's no,
wait, no,
wait,
no,
no.
before the dance,
Juliet comes
Juliet
before the dance.
arriving.
Okay, right,
Yeah,
right.
so I think maybe you take Juliet's
Yeah.
spectacular entrance.
Right, so Juliet just one day out of the blue rocks up to school, parks right next to Charlie's car, which is apparently a big offense to her because no one parks next to Charlie's big red Jeep thing, I guess, or whatever the heck.
Yeah, but she calls it. You could like Rosalind calls it Big Red, right?
Yeah, big red. I don't know what kind of car it is.
I think it is a Jeep.
Look, Americans like big cars, so we just assume it's some sort
Yeah,
of car that Americans like or whatever. They, I don't. We weren't
yeah,
paying. Look, we're not paying it. It's irrelevant. Anyway,
yeah. It's irrelevant.
Juliet shows up. She gets out the car. Now she's basically um blonde Barbie with massive sunglasses apparently because she really
Yeah,
likes sunglasses to hide her face a lot, and she's apparently one upping Olivia on like all of her styles. Like Olivia wanted like a new handbag or something, like the latest Gucci. Oh, I don't know what
Gucci.
bags they're Gucci
I,
or something. It
yeah,
was
I think it was
Louis
Gucci
Vuitton. I think it
or
was
like
it was a Louis Vuitton
yeah,
bag
it
or
was Louis
whatever.
Vuitton.
So apparently she's got like all the latest new versions of it. So she's like very much the hip and app. She's gonna disturb the the school hierarchy of who's popular and whatnot. And she obviously
Yeah,
shows up, and she's very So Rosaline obviously doesn't quite still understand why Juliet like now hates her or whatever the heck. And so she sort of tries to be nice to Juliet. Juliet is very cold though. But for
yeah.
some dumb reason, Rosaline also just goes, "It's okay. Look, maybe Rosaline. Look, Rosaline was trying desperately to be nice. She was like,
She
and
really was
you can come sit with us at break
at
and
break.
whatnot, or recess as they call it in
Yeah,
America.
recess.
Um, and basically this kind of causes a bit of trouble because obviously at the first thing at break, the first thing naturally Juliet asks is, "How are the guys in the school?" And this is where we
Yeah,
get. This is okay. This is where we're going to get onto a bit more of the. This book is equally sexist to both men and women,
men and women.
being that this book portrays men as basically dumb idiots who are sexy and have basically they are
No, of
they are
course.
not capable of doing anything on their own without the girls. Because Juliet asks how are the guys, and Charlie, being the one who's slept with several guys, is kind of like, "Oh, don't worry, all the guys are complete idiots in the school. They they're easy picking basically." And
Yeah.
Juliet's like, "Great,
Oh,
fantastic!" Like
great. It was very nice. But
straight up,
something,
it's just
yeah,
the guys are there to be hot, and that's it.
yeah. Which again is very problematic. We will touch on it when we're done with
And
the
we'll also
entire
get through to the absolute sexism towards women. And I
woman
have
in
the
this.
exact quote that Charlie puts down about slut shaming and whatnot, and we're
Yeah,
gonna use that one because
sluttiness.
that quote is probably one of the this probably that's it is the worst quote of the book actually.
Yeah.
But
And this is something that is kind of like sprinkled in through the book, and it like, and we're not saying this to be nitpicky, or we're not saying this because we like really looked for something. It is very blatant in the
yeah,
entire book, and that's there's a lot of stripping characters and stripping genders and stripping people down to base like plates that are so basically kind of just offensive.
the characters in this book are all stripped down to a very insulted basic level of you are a woman, but like okay, so like very insults, we're like saying all women are reduced to sluts and all men are
Oh
reduced to
man,
players. Basically, that is it.
basically.
That's what
And
these
these are
stereotypes
the
do in this
words
book.
that are used in this book. These are the words that
Literally,
are used in
no,
this
like we're
book.
not kidding when we say like we're not saying slut to be rude or anything. We're saying
Like,
it
no, no,
because
no,
this is
no.
verbatim from the book.
Yeah, these are
So
the words that we use. So, yeah, it is a theme that is very prevalent, and the tide is, and it did make me quite uncomfortable. Like,
mm,
uh, you could ask Calvin. Like, I think I sent him like 6 texts, just like absolutely fuming.
Yeah, no, we had heated conversations on this because
Yeah, about this, but
it's very bad, which is probably
it is
gonna be
very
what the title of this episode
this
is.
podcast is.
When the
Yeah,
men are sexy,
but
but the book is
anyway,
sexist. God damn it.
it's sexist. Oh crap. I think okay. Anyways, so
We go so basically
as I was,
Juliet has a thing for so Juliet was also friends for Rob right now. But in like in the past, Rob, Rosaline,
yeah,
and Juliet were all friends, right? And now
yeah, when they
obviously
were kids.
yeah, and now Juliet comes along and looks at one guy in particular and goes, "Ooh, this guy is sexy or whatnot," and it just so happens to be
Happens to
Rob.
be Rob.
So
And here's the thing that here's the first time that Juliet just not saying thing annoyed me heavily, and that's I mean not Juliet, Rosaline said not saying anything annoyed me heavily, and that is when Juliet talks about how she wants to take Rob to the dance.
yeah, straight
Because
up, Juliet asks Rob to go to the dance
of
with her.
the dance. And the reason that she did this, one is because Charlie, Olivia, and Rosaline are going together as like a
As
girls'
friends.
group.
They kind of wanted to do an all girls thing rather than have the
Yeah,
boyfriends.
like
Even though,
the boys.
ironically, in the end, the boyfriends get involved anyway. So
Yeah,
don't know
it's
what that was
very
about.
weird. Anyway, so Juliet, and the thing is, at this point, Rosaline hasn't mentioned to Juliet that her and Rob are a thing, even though they've gone on the date, they've kissed, they've gotten a little bit more handsy and stuff. Um, so she doesn't say anything when she says that. So I think at this point, Charlie is like advocating on her behalf of being like, maybe that's not just a very good idea. And I also think it's important to mention that at this point, Rob is like agreeing with it fully. Like he's like, no, Juliet, I'm doing it for you. It's your cousin. It's fine.
It's
But
fine. It's fine, girl.
yeah,
we're still dating. I promise.
yeah,
This is not
it's
going to go like the exact play Romeo and Juliet goes, where I fall in love on day one.
yeah. So yeah, so Juliet ends up like chiding at Rosaline to the point where she doesn't necessarily agree, but doesn't necessarily stop Rob from going to the dance with Juliet, which is another thing. It also opens up that whole like theme of like men just being like players and like sex symbols in this
Yeah,
book
no, because
because
we also get
Rob
like
doesn't do
what's
anything.
yeah, no, we'll also get to the dance because I think after this we'll get straight to the dance. 'Cause I don't think anything else too important happens to this. But we're gonna
Yeah,
get to this. Why this book decides? Here we go. That the book decides that eventually all of this is like Charlie, Olivia, and essentially the author kind of all push the blame of this whole thing on Juliet. They go, no, Juliet seduced Rob. Rob
yeah.
was acting different because of Juliet. Juliet must have some weird seductive powers here. No one ever in this
No
book
one's
says
blaming Rob.
like Rob was the one who went with it. Like he's a
Yeah.
complete plank. He's an idiot,
So
and no,
and
none of it that was his fault. He was an innocent, sweet boy who got seduced by the monster that's Juliet.
yeah, and then that this is like one of the like blatant instances where it both like slut shames women, but also completely dehumanizes men, and it kind of just leaves this like weird hole
Yeah,
where it's like, well, I guess nobody's competent at all.
no. Don't forget, they're smart. They're all going to Stanford.
Oh yeah, they're all very
so
smart.
theoretically they should be competent, but no, no, whatever.
No,
Anyway, shall we get to the
anyway,
dance?
yeah.
Let's
So
get
the
to the
dance
dance.
happens. Olivia, Charlie, and Rosaline are all late because they spent all their time dressing up in Olivia's house, and Lauren has to
Yeah,
uh,
set up the
put up the
entirety of
dance by themselves. Okay, so for some reason, Rosaline walks in by herself and leaves her girlfriends alone immediately and makes a straight beeline for Rob.
yeah.
Um,
Because at this point Juliet is late as well because
yeah,
essentially Juliet and Rob weren't going on a date, they were just going to meet at the dance or something like that, and so Juliet
yeah,
hasn't showed up yet, and so Rob and Rosaline are alone together for a bit.
yeah.
And yeah,
So Rob and Rosaline they start dancing. I don't know if they kiss. I have no idea if they kiss.
no, they do kiss, and it was
Do they kiss? Yeah.
that's why when after so they dance for a while, they kiss and whatnot, then Rosaline has to go to the bathroom, and that's when she's like, this was like the best night of
It's
my
the
life, this is
perfect
going
thing.
perfectly. And
Uh,
so once again time gets confusing, so she goes to the bathroom because I'm not too sure why, probably to fix
I think she had
makeup
to
or
like fix
something.
her makeup or
Yeah,
something.
Anyway, so either she's in that bathroom for like several darn hours or something, or Juliet just like kapoo teleports out there, and stuff starts happening, because obviously when Rosaline exits the bathroom, she bumps into Len, and Len's like, "Yo, your man's a bit of an
A bit of a
idiot." Like,
yeah,
because
he's a
then
bit of
she's like,
a
"What?"
dumbass.
And
He's
then of
like,
course,
Lynn's like, don't blame me for whatever you see up there.
yeah. And then of course,
And
what's happening up there? Rob and Juliet are,
Juliet
and Rob is being
making out.
very intimate with Juliet, more so than
Yeah,
he was with
then she was
Rosaline.
Rosalind.
And so shit happens.
Yeah,
Olivia and Ben are
so
still making out in the background.
yeah, Olivia and Ben are making out. Jake and Charlie are somewhere. Um,
And
I
then
think actually, I think she sees
no,
Jake and
Charlie.
Ben making out when she walks out, and then she sees not Jake and Ben, not Jake. This isn't gay.
That would actually be great. Jake and Ben, yes.
No, she sees Charlie and Jake making out when she walks out of the bathroom. Then she sees Len, and then when she gets to the top, she sees Olivia and Ben making out.
Yeah, and then that's obviously there's Juliet and Rob, and then I can't actually remember what happens after this. I think she just obviously goes home and does the
Yeah, she just goes
usual.
home and
It's the
cries.
usual stereotypical thing. Goes home,
Yeah, like
cries.
running
Oh
away in her
yeah,
dress.
yeah. Charlie and Olivia try to call her. She has several missed calls by the next morning,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah,
And then she just kind of goes back to school, and it's never so. Basically, then she goes back to school for the next week, and Rob and Juliet on our thing. And she's
yeah.
just like
They're,
she's just like, well,
that's
that's
that's the
that their
thing.
thing.
So
Yeah, at one point Rob does catch her along in like during when like they're swapping classes or whatever, to say he apologizes, and this is where the author tried to bring in the whole actual idea of fate from the original Romeo and Juliet, because then Rob kind of goes like, "I'm so sorry, but like it's just." It feels like I was destined to be in love with this woman
yeah,
or whatever.
it is.
It's trying to be Shakespearean but failing miserably,
Yeah,
basically.
and okay, throughout this entire time, Rosaline has said nothing. She's just like, it's fine, it happened. We weren't really together. Blah blah blah. Like a very
And
obviously
Rob
very
still wants to
timid.
be friends, but Rosalind,
Yeah, Rob still
At
wants to
least
be friends.
Rosalind has the common sense to go, fuck no.
Yeah. And at this point as well, they have to do a pop quiz in biology or something,
Yeah.
and she flunks it. And so this brings in the whole play narrative that also takes place at some point.
Oh yeah, because at
They,
school they're doing like a play or something,
they're doing
and
Macbeth.
yeah, so funny enough, right? So you figure that this gets really weird. So obviously they're having a play Macbeth going on. This implies that obviously Shakespeare exists in this world, and so it is
Yeah.
a world that's basically, it's literally our world. So no one has ever looked at people in this scenario going, there's two kids in our school called Juliet and Rosaline who are cousins with the surname Caplet, and it is this guy called Rob Montague. No one just
Mon-
happens to look at this and go,
no,
"That's kind of
this
weird."
is very similar. This is very similar to a book
Yeah,
I
like
read.
maybe no one in this universe has read Shakespeare other than their play for Macbeth, but it's
Which
very
is like,
bizarre.
it's very bizarre. But basically, what happens is Rosaline really needs to get into Stanford, and she flunks this bio test because she's heartbroken, and she has to work on the play for extra credit so that she can make up her marks, because the play director, like head teacher, is
The
also
bio teacher, yeah.
the bio teacher, and she ends up working with her biology partner, Len. And this is the first time we get an inkling that Rosaline might have a thing for
Oh
Len.
yes, because as we predicted from the early on for the beginning that when Len was introduced, we were kind of like, so this is gonna be the guy she gets with in the end, essentially.
Yeah,
And so it's really funny because he isn't described as very attractive in the beginning, but he has curly hair. That's one thing, because Rosalind's always wanting to pull the curly's hair, and then when he's like
yeah,
busy
yes,
hanging a
really,
light
yeah.
bulb or something, she goes, "Who would have thought that Len is actually pretty handsome?"
That's
And it was just
pretty
like that. I was
handsome.
just like, "Oh come on."
Uh, oh, come on. Anyways, so yeah, so this is the first time all of this happens. She's had a confrontation with Ben. She's had a confrontation with Rob. All the men in this book are the same, and
They
that's
all
why
have very short names. I've actually only realized now.
yeah.
Len,
Ben,
Rob.
Len, Rob, Jake,
Yeah,
and
there's
Belgian kid, except for Belgian boy,
yeah, but no one knows
the
his
one that's
name
like my
because
dad.
apparently he can't speak English.
Yeah,
So he's just called the Belgium
yeah.
kid because he can't
The,
speak English.
the main character of this middle, like modern English, still somehow old English play is a boy, an exchange student from Belgium that I think Olivia or Charlie
Yeah,
dated.
no, Olivia dated Belgium, and she was like, I dated him not because I could tell what he was saying, because obviously he can't speak English, but because he was hot, and so she could
It's
have the
hot
say of saying I dated a guy from Belgium.
Belgian.
Anyway, totally
Yeah,
irrelevant.
so
Whatever.
yeah, totally irrelevant, but it's just the most hilarious thing in the world. This like random kid that
I
can't
know.
speak English is played by Beth in this play.
And
Also,
in the play, yeah, who gets to play Lady Macbeth? No other than
and Juliet.
Juliet herself.
Because
And
it's
then
also hinted, yeah, it's also
and then
hinted that Juliet is an actress because she did commercials or
yeah, she did
something.
commercials.
She was a commercial
I was gonna say because
actor,
commercial acting is the exact same
the
as
same as
theatrical
theater.
acting. So therefore,
Yeah,
it's obvious.
yeah, and Rob ends up playing Banquo, which I mean, we know nothing about Rob, but there was nothing that ever told us that Rob would have any interest in acting.
No,
Yeah,
that's why we said the men are so one-dimensional in this. It doesn't make any sense. It's also the same, like even a bit with like Rosaline and like outside of relationships. No one knows what they're like. Why does she want to go to Stanford? Fuck knows.
nobody
What does she
knows.
plan to
Nobody
do?
knows.
Hell knows. What is she interested
Nobody
in?
knows.
God knows. No one
Nobody
knows.
knows.
There's nothing she's interested in
Um,
besides men.
and so at this point, the girls, the three main girls, the squad, as I call them in my head, are planning a trip to
Malibu.
Olivia's parents' house, beach house in Malibu. They are planning a trip to Malibu, and I think Charlie brings up the fact that they might want to invite Rob to their trip to Malibu, uh, suggesting that he might know not to bring Juliet given the circumstances.
Yeah. And also, once again, Rosaline doesn't. Rosaline has no backbone. She doesn't go.
Yeah.
Hell no. She
Hell
goes.
no,
She
don't.
goes. She goes. No, but it would be so unfair to exclude the guys. Oh, boo-hoo! This
Yeah.
is supposed to be a girls' trip.
You're like, he fucked you over. What do you
Why?
mean?
Yeah, like fuck the guys. Like, geez, okay, it's all about the
No.
guys. For God's sake.
So we're going to skip there's nothing really interesting that happens.
Yeah.
Uh, Len is doing sound and lighting for the shout out Riley Pittman.
Yes,
Uh,
Riley. Thank you.
Riley. Len is doing sound and lighting for Macbeth, so that's how he and Rosaline end up spending some time together. Other than that, we can skip straight ahead to the girls going on their trip to Malibu for the weekend.
Yes, because so naturally, this is how your first big part of school starts. The first
Yeah,
week you go to school, then you have a school dance naturally. The second week you go to school, and then you go on a short vacation over the weekend to Malibu.
yeah,
And they're trying to
because
get into
you no
Stanford. How are you
project.
people trying to get into Stanford when you're doing all
Like
of this crap?
these seniors in high school have no projects, have no assignments, no papers due, no homework to read over, nothing. They can get pissed drunk in Malibu and just live their
Like,
lives again. So they end up getting to this, and also this is where the timeline also shifts a little bit because the girls get there like really early, like an hour or two before the boys,
yeah,
and instead of like just hanging out waiting for the boys,
they get drunk.
Olivia and Charlie just get drunk, and then the boys arrive and like they just also get drunk.
And then obviously Robert and Juliet show up, and I
Yeah,
don't.
but yeah, Rob did not take the hint at all, and did in fact bring Juliet to the beach house.
House, yeah, I know. And it's very awkward or whatever. This is also the point where Rosalind was kind of like Juliet is slowly starting to assimilate, and that Charlie and Olivia are slowly getting fine. Because at the end of that thing, Olivia and Juliet walk off down to the beach together or whatever
Yeah,
the fuck. So essentially, it's kind of like, but also at the same time, once again, the girls try to be like on Rosalind's side, and once again, this is
yeah,
where the slut shaming comes in.
such a
And
they
okay,
they keep
I think this is time to pull up the god awful
yeah
quotes. So there is a description here, which Charlie describes as what the difference between being slutty is and being a
slutty and being
slut.
a
And
slut.
apparently there's a difference, people. If you
There's
didn't
a
know
difference.
this, let us see if I can find this god awful quote.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go, people. So here is our knowledge on the difference between a slut. So, Charlie says there's a difference between being a slut and being slutty. She thinks Olivia was slutty for hooking up with the Belgian, but she would never call her a slut. Her theory is that the distinction is between how you act and who you are. Olivia's was an action, whereas Darcy's is a defining quality. So this is when they're like shitting on a girl called Darcy, who's apparently just also a slut.
Yeah, I
And
think
so the whole point is,
working with
so there's a
men.
difference. If you sleep around with people, that's slutty activity.
Slutty.
But a slut is a defining feature, meaning
Feature.
your whole life revolves around you
Right,
are
you
like
are-
it's so it's so demeaning as well. So it's kind of like
so
only certain
damaging.
girls. I know it's like so certain girls. If you sleep around girls, it's fine. You're slutty. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a slut. If you're bad though, like if you're a bad person, then you're a slut.
Then you're
and
slut.
That's your whole quality.
That's
you
your whole
more.
personality trait. That's all. That's the only part of your character that matters, according to these three popular girls.
Yeah, so it's truly god awful, and basically the whole thing, as we say, their whole thing is that they completely slut shame Juliet, and they blame her entirely. She was the
Yeah.
one who seduced Rob. Rob was innocent. Rob changed because of her. It must have been her
Yeah,
fault. It wasn't
Rob
Rob's
had
at all.
Rob had no like ability to make his own choices in the situation. It was entirely Juliet.
Yeah, so it's honestly god awful. Like just both
Yeah.
genders get absolutely.
Literally,
It's
like
just sexist in so many ways possible. Like I didn't know. Like I don't know. Look, I don't know what the author was doing with this book when she wrote it. And look, it probably wasn't her intent, and maybe she
intention to
kind of
make
just
it.
never went through beta readers, or either all the beta readers were her really close friends who didn't want to kind of go, hey, this is kind of
Sexist.
yeah. So we're not too sure what happened.
Yeah.
We're not, like we say, we don't know who the author is. Like we don't know the author personally at all.
Yeah, we don't know her.
We don't know apart from the little bit at the back about. But otherwise, we're
yeah.
not gonna. But we're just gonna comment that this book is not.
It's
sexist.
very demeaning.
It's sexist in very many ways.
Yeah. Anyways, so this party happens. Nothing much at the party actually happens except Rosaline starts to rationalize the fact that
Juliet's
at a certain point,
around.
yeah, Juliet's going to be sticking around, and at a certain point, Olivia and Charlie are going to stop being on her side and start rationalizing the fact that Juliet's going to be here. There's no point in continuously like uh, slut shaming her or whatever the hell.
Yeah. And then I think there's like a weird time skip in the book. Once again, time is very weird in this book. Where
Yeah,
like,
it is
skips
very
to like the end of the year, and it's like in October. Suddenly we skip till October, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't know, unless like, because I feel like the American school system, they also start. They don't necessarily start in January. Like I don't.
Yeah, no. They start at the end of like July or June,
Okay,
July.
so I guess that would make more sense. So it doesn't necessarily skip over a whole year, but let's just say several months supposedly.
Yeah,
go
a couple
by.
of
It's
months
now
have
October.
passed. Juliet is not doing well.
Yeah,
Doing well.
Suddenly this girl is off the rails. She's sucking at the play. She's having a bit of a fallout with Rob.
Yeah.
And Rob is starting to realize, hey, he kind of wants Rosaline back.
Yeah, so, and at this point, Rosaline, she's not doing a lot better, but she is doing better than what she was at this point.
Her and Len have started having more conversations.
Yeah,
Getting a bit.
Len. Yeah, Len is.
It turns out Len is actually probably the most genuine guy in this whole entire book. Like he's the only one who actually seems to, have proper emotions and actually has common sense in this book. Like he's very caring for other people around him. He's very self-aware, unlike all the other characters in this book who are just complete. And he has, because later on in the book, you find out the reason that he doesn't work hard in school or whatnot is because he's already been accepted he's a bit of a piano prodigy, and he's already been accepted at the school called Juilliard or whatever in New
he's going to New York. He's going to Juilliard.
He could have ditched high school a long time ago, but the reason he's sticking around in high school is because he still wants to have that high school experience. But he has other ambitions outside of things. He has other like character traits that make him actual, an actual character.
So he's the only character in this book that is a character.
And he also, because like he has like a birthmark on his arm. It's like a long birthmark on his arm or something.
Yeah,
like
and that's why he wears like long sleeves all the time and stuff.
And then he initially wore long sleeves, but then he started not wearing long sleeves because he became more confident in himself. Like this guy is like the only one who actually has a bit of depth and substance to him.
So Juliet, basically, there's this whole interaction where Juliet missed a test or missed a reading of a test and didn't know what was happening in the bio class. So then Len switches her test with his so that she can pass because it obviously doesn't matter whether or not Len passes this one test because he's already
Yeah.
been accepted to Juilliard. But then after this whole interaction, something very interesting happens where there is a little bit of a scuffle between Rob and
Yeah.
Len.
Rob decides to pitch up because, right, so he kind of now wants to get back with Rosaline, to say the least. And Rosaline is not having any of it. She's kind of moved on at this point, at least,
Yeah,
thank God. And so she's like, no. And so then Rob gets a bit handsy, I guess. He tries to, like, grab her or something like that. And then Len comes in and tells him to basically fuck off.
back off, and uh, Rob sees this as a threat to his masculinity, I think, or something. So
Yeah,
he,
we have this scrawny little piano kid who
yeah,
no one likes, and he's suddenly telling him what to do. Oh God, I'm a sexy
oh
big
god.
man. I better beat the shit out of him.
So Rob takes a swing at Len, punches him in the face. Len goes down, and the principal comes up and sorts all of this out. And they takes him to the office or whatever and
Yeah.
sorts all of that out.
Yeah, and
Uh,
meanwhile, at this point, Len and Rosaline are going to go to her house after school to like finish up with their
yeah, it's like
bio
biology
project or
project.
whatever the heck.
Yeah,
Um, and okay, the one thing, Len is a bit of a stalker. Let's say the least.
yeah.
He
This is
kind of knows. So it's a bit obvious that he's kind of had a thing for Rosaline for quite a while.
yeah.
He
They used to
somehow
take
knows her
piano
favorite
lessons
like
together.
candy, Twizzlers or whatever. He knows her favorite candy. He knows where she lives because one time when he was like 7 years old, he was like stuck or something, and then Rosaline's parents let him stay at their house until their mom.
Yeah,
So he remembers that from when he was like 7 years old. He's a bit
uh, it,
creepy.
it's
So,
a bit
but
creepy, but it's
it's
fine.
fine.
Anyways,
It's
so
he doesn't come off as creepy. It's just a bit like when you pause for a moment, you go wait, like you go like, how the fuck did you know that guy, my guy? But whatever.
yeah. So at this point, Juliet goes home and not Juliet. Rosaline goes home.
Oh
She
yeah,
meets with Juliet, and
I was gonna.
Juliet is rough. She's like having an
Yeah,
awful time. And Juliet really wants to Rosaline really wants to figure out why. So she goes home and she asks her parents. She's like, "So what really happened between the Capulets and the Montagues?"
yeah,
And it turns out the whole reason that there was a whole big falling out was Rob's mom had an affair with Juliet's dad
yeah. So it's a
just
bit more
before the
deeper
race.
than governor running for like senate or
Yeah,
governor or whatever. There's a bit of an
and
affair going on in there.
Rosaline's parents had a choice. They could either side with uh, obviously
Yeah,
Rosaline's dad's family,
yeah.
like Rosaline's uncle, or they could side with the Montagues. And they chose to side with the Montagues, and that's what ended up with Rosaline's dad helping Rob's dad with the campaign race and him inevitably winning, and
Yeah.
Juliet's parents
So
moving away.
it's like their personal affair then spun out into more of an external like feud between them with like the struggle for power as senator or whatever
Yeah,
the heck. And then obviously the families are just like pretty much hate each other's guts for that,
yeah.
etc.
So at this point, Juliet knows because I think they have a dinner just
Yeah,
before this.
So basically Juliet is known for a while. Rob has no idea though, and so the reason
Yeah,
Rob
Rob
gets
has no
mad with
idea.
Juliet is because he finds out
Basically,
eventually.
basically, um, Rosaline finds out, then Juliet finds out, and then they have for some reason they have like a family dinner, like the two Capulet families. They have like
Oh
a
yeah,
dinner,
I remember that.
and
It's
then
awkward.
Juliet's really pussy, and then she like goes and cries, and like Rosaline like tries to comfort her, but then she's like, no,
Okay,
no.
this is where we get the reason for why Juliet is being a bitchy slut,
Oh yeah, oh
essentially,
my god,
because universe
oh
shattering.
my god.
According to Juliet, people, according to Juliet, Rosalind had everything Juliet
Everything
has
Juliet
ever
wanted.
wanted, and so she has to take it all away. The most unique. You never saw that coming. Like you cannot get deeper than that. Bravo,
Like
bravo.
it was truly just one of the biggest twists I've ever seen in
Mind
my entire life.
blown.
Mind blown. Anyways, yeah, so basically Juliet knows at this point, Rob doesn't, but Juliet has been trying to keep away from Rob, uh, but Rob doesn't exactly know why, so he's going through this whole situation. And I think at some point, exactly what happens is, if my timeline's correct, Rosaline, just before this whole situation, Rosaline and Len are fixing or like helping out with sound and lighting, and Juliet's on stage, and Rob
Yeah.
bursts through the door, comes up and like starts like berating her, asking her if she knew about this whole affair. And when she says yes, she did, Rob like gets all handsy, and the Belgian kid tries to step in, and then he ends up leaving. And so
Yeah.
that's the second last time we see Rob. The last time we see Rob is when Juliet is getting ready for Len to arrive. And now
When
this
Rosaline's
whole
getting ready for that, yeah. So basically,
sorry,
when Len, yeah, when Len came over to Rosaline's house for their bio project, they basically set up a date.
yeah,
There was a sweet moment where they were at the piano together or whatever, because apparently there was a picture of them when they were kids and they used to like play the piano together. Because Rosaline also used to play the piano, and so Len obviously played the piano for her, etc. And they set up a date.
I
Let's
think
yeah let's yeah we don't
I
want to draw this
think
out too long because I have no idea how long we've been recording this for.
I think that was after though. Like, I
Yeah, I
think it
don't.
was after the whole death thing.
Yeah,
I
I
think what
don't
happened was
know.
Juliet, I mean, Rosaline goes to answer the door, and then Rob's there, and he's crying. He's like, "I want you back," or like, "Stop talking to me," or whatever. And then Rosaline's like, "No, I don't want to do this," and Rob leaves, and then
But
it
Rob
was
was
in this
also
whole
like, remember,
watch.
Rob was like, please just think about it, and she's like,
Yeah,
okay, fine, I'll think about it. And
think
so that's
about
when
it.
Len happens to be once again in any stalkerish moment, happened to have been listening to all that.
Yeah,
And
and so
so
then
yeah, the
she comes
drama,
up
because
and he's
you
like,
gotta have the drama, right? You have the drama. So he comes up and he kind of goes, and he tells, because his whole thing was that he was like telling Rosaline to just move on with their life. So rightly so, he was just like, Rosaline, this guy's an asshole. He's an
yeah.
idiot. Just move on with your life. And so when she says, I'll think about it, Len hears that Len's just like, God, she hasn't moved on yet, has she? And so,
And then so Len confronts her, and they don't actually end up doing that whole like project thing, and then they just end. And then we cut to the next morning, and Rob and Juliet are dead.
they die. This is so, like we said, the beginning of this book is so slow, right? And then from here on out, things go from 0 to 100
This is the last two
really
chapters.
quickly.
This is the last two chapters of the
So
book.
Rob and Juliet insta die within the night.
Okay, they don't insta die. They drive off a cliff, the same cliff that Rob and Rosalind went on when they kissed for the first time. But yeah, so they drive off a cliff and they're dead. So obviously Rosalind is very, very sad. One, because she blames herself
Yeah, because she was
for
like,
the
I could have accepted Rob back. I could have taken him in. You could have invited him in, and then none of this would have happened.
yeah,
But yeah, so she's under. So this is where the book, we will say, does get pretty good, because for once,
yeah,
This is the only time Rosalind's feelings are actually come out, and they're done really
yeah,
well. Like her kind of like her depressed like grievance. Her grievance is actually written pretty well. So
yeah.
this is where the book actually got a bit good at the end.
Her
Okay.
Rosalind's like struggle with one, the death of her best friend, but two, the reason that he died is like very well written in terms
Yeah.
of the fact that like she does her best to try and rationalize things in her head, but that doesn't stop her from still feeling that guilt. And that really like allows like us as the readers to empathize with her on like a deeper level. But basically what happens is this they die they die and then
Yeah, they die. They obviously
and
in a
then
car
there's a
crash. They
funeral.
die. There's funerals.
But
Uh,
the interesting thing that happens at the funeral, if you want to do that,
uh, like which one? The one at like Rob's funeral, or when she tries to go to
like when then like
Juliet's?
they're not allowed, like the whole part where they're not allowed to
Yeah.
Juliet.
Okay. Right. So she goes to Rob's funeral. There's a school, whatever. But we'll also just say that for some reason throughout this entire book, Olivia and Charlie are like the most useless characters.
Oh yeah, no,
they
they're
have no
awful at
points to the
support.
narrative in any way. Like
Awful
I
at
get that
support.
you want to have your character have some more depth, like give your character friends and whatnot, but like, can they not somehow fall into the narrative in any way? Like they
Yeah,
don't
it's
add anything. Like if you cut Charlie and Olivia out of this entire, they're only there to heighten the teenage drama. Oh yeah, because at some point Olivia has sex with Ben or whatever, and it's a big deal because the
yeah,
author was
and
trying
she
to do
likes sex
sex or
apparently.
something.
Yeah, but
Uh, they're
and then
useless to the
Charlie's
narrative.
mom's dead, and that's character development, I think.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, they're just there at the end of the funeral. They're just there. They're like, yeah, we're sorry, Rosaline. Yeah, great friends, whatever.
yeah.
And then
So
Rosaline decides that she's going to she wants, because obviously she was friends with Juliet. She was friends with Juliet like she was friends with Rob. I mean, 'cause
Yeah.
they're cousins, yeah. But she had like this very intimate bond with Juliet when they were little kids, and so she decides that she wants to go pay her respects to Juliet and go to her funeral. But obviously the Caplets are very much do not want anything to do with Rosalind's family at this point, and so they don't allow her in to actually go see
Yeah.
Juliet, which is
And
actually quite depressing. That was kind of like,
yeah,
oh,
it was a very
because
sad moment.
it felt really good that Rosalind was actually going to go to her cousin's funeral.
Like,
Like it
and get
felt
some closure.
like it felt like her friends were pressuring her into slut shaming Juliet this whole time, whereas in a way Rosalind knew deep down that that was not who Juliet was. And so
Yeah.
I think it was quite nice, and it was really painful. It was just like, oh god, she didn't get
Yeah.
in because
And
they wouldn't allow them in.
there's also a scene where she sees Len, and she's like in a really dark place, and she really wants to go talk to Len, but Len just like gives her a nod and like runs away.
Yeah,
And like kind of like there's like this hint of abandonment that she feels, and it's just awful. Like, you feel awful
yeah,
for her.
and it's also nice because this is where her parents get a bit of a depth to them as well. This is where the
Yeah.
parents come back again because at the funeral as well, it turns out her dad was also there, who happened to be leaning against the tree because he also wanted to go to show support for his brother at the loss of his daughter because he knows what it would be like to
Yeah.
lose a daughter like that, and so they're trying to reconcile and like similarly how like at the end of the actual Romeo and Juliet, the Montagues and the Montagues, so confusing, the
Yeah.
Montagues and the Capulets try to reconcile. Um, and so he was there, but he obviously wasn't allowed in either, and so he kind of like he talks to Rosalind, and he's like, don't worry, I understand what you feel, and so it's very it's you for once you see like the relationship between Rosalind and her parents, and it's actually kind of wholesome. Like her
Yeah.
parents are actually pretty good parents, you know. Like they
Yeah.
actually love their and then apart
They
from the
love their
weird thing when they were
kids.
apart from the weird fact that they were making out in the beginning of the story, which is how you get
Yeah.
introduced to them, they're actually rather down to earth people, and they
Yeah, they are.
they understand what their daughter is going through. So it's not like they're hateful parents or anything. It's actually pretty. So yeah, and
Yeah.
then it's at this point.
That she goes back to school, and then on a, at a she tries to reconcile with Len, but neither of them are like in this place where they want to, because
Yeah,
both of them think that either one's like mad at them. Um, so if I'm not mistaken, what happens is I think Olivia is driving Rosalind home, or Charlie's driving Rosalind home, and they
yeah,
have like this whole heart to heart where, oh no, it is Charlie, because she's talking about Jake.
yeah.
Yeah. So Charlie and Rosalind are driving home, and Charlie is like just feeling awful about Jake because they broke up, and it's like she doesn't think that they're going to get back together. And Rosalind gives her this whole heart to heart about what it is like to choose, like who you love, and like leave the
Yeah,
things that aren't going to work in the past and stuff like that. And I think at that point Rosalind breaks down as well, and Charlie gives her some good advice about, especially like when it comes to like her mom dying and like how she felt about
yeah,
that, and how to grieve. And it's the first time, it is the first time in this book that Charlie or any of Juliet's friends are seen as characters that could even
yeah.
begin to try and emotionally support an actual human being.
Yeah, no. And so, like, then she kind of like goes home, and then I'm not too sure what the time. Like I said, the time is a bit confusing. But then it's at some point that she decides, yeah, she needs to move on with her
Yeah,
life. Right?
so she
Rob is
invites,
gone. She's reconciled that there was nothing she could have done. That wasn't her fault, and she can move on now. So that's where she goes. I need to go see Len.
Len. So
And so yeah, we never mentioned this. So Rosalind can't drive, right? She's scared of
yeah,
she's terrified of driving for some reason, and so that's why she always gets left with Charlie and whatnot because she hates driving. Um, and I think it's like her birthday or something at the end of
yeah,
this
it's her
book or
birthday,
something. And
and
then yeah, she
her
decides
parents,
she just knows where Elena's gonna be at because
yeah,
I don't know why that one's a bit weird, but she
she's
knows where
had a
Elena's gonna
car
be
this
at.
entire time. She's had
Oh
a
yeah, she
car
has
this
yeah, because
entire
rich
time.
people. She has a car, but she doesn't actually drive it. She also has a
Yeah,
license, so she has a license, but she doesn't drive it anyway.
it's very confusing. Um,
So she
but yeah,
decides,
so she
yeah,
decides to go. She could feel her heart aching for Len. So so she goes out, and she knows exactly where Len's going to be.
Yeah,
which
she
is the cliff.
drives for the first time because naturally, if you haven't been driving for several years, you will automatically trust.
Magically, no,
Yes, brilliant driver,
because
autopilot is how she described it.
from what I remember, I think Americans can get their licenses at 16.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, they can. Or their
So
learners at 16 and their drivers at 7. I don't know, something like
17 or
that.
something. But so she goes out, and Len, for some reason, just happens to be at the cliff where um,
It's never
Rob
explained
and
why she.
Juliet.
Yeah, it's never explained why he has any connection to the cliffside or how Rosalind knew that he would be there and then at that exact same time.
Yeah,
Whatever.
but yeah, so Rosaline goes to Len and they start talking about NYU for some reason. Like she's ready to abandon all her prospects of going to Stanford to go to
Yeah,
NYU so she can be with Len at Juilliard.
yeah,
And
cause
then they
she's
kiss.
yeah, cause she's finally like, I think I finally moved on, and that's like, and Len's like, well, then we can do whatever the hell
Whatever
we
the
want,
hell we
and then
want.
that's like how the book ends.
And then the book ends. So yeah, that is When You Were Mine by Rebecca Serle.
Yeah, and in the end, we gave it 2 stars instead of the 1 star we thought it was gonna be,
Yeah.
because the ending was, as we say, dealing with grief and whatnot. It was well portrayed, and her relationship with like her friends and her parents suddenly became a lot deeper within those last few pages. But also, once again, this as we say, these last few pages happen within like 2 chapters. Everything goes
Yeah, it's
super
the
fast. It's like
something
take
that we
off like
did.
a
Yeah,
rocket.
something that we did complain about quite a lot in this book is obviously the sexism, but then also
Yeah,
the pacing of this book was very off.
yeah, it
Like,
was so all over the show. I
it
didn't
was
know what it was. It was just
there's like very long stretches where nothing happens, and then all of a sudden, like all of this big stuff happens within like 2 pages, and
yeah.
it's very jarring for the reader. It really takes
And
you out
yeah,
of the experience.
and for the sake of comparing this with our man of the week,
Yeah.
Zac
Oh yeah,
Efron.
we need to compare.
So
So
so so I was gonna say the pacing is like up and down all over the show, exactly as every photo of Zac Efron is completely different. Like
yeah,
every
every
time when
single
you go and Google this man, every photo is somehow different.
is completely different.
He looks
It is the
different
most
in every
incredible thing. He looks like the sexiest man alive in one, and then he looks
and then
like a hobbit. It's so
that's why you're
confusing.
so like, is this guy sexy or not? It's like sexy confusion. You're like, oh, he's sexy. Then you scroll to the next one. You're like, oh, never
Oh,
mind.
never mind. Um, so,
So-
but yeah, look, When You Were Mine is definitely a book that if you're looking for a read that isn't very like deep, that like you could just read for the sake of reading a book,
yeah, and if you
it
want
is a book
teenage
that you
drama
want.
as well, yeah, if you want
Yeah, if
teenage
you want
drama as
teenage
well,
drama, if you're really into, I mean, I haven't read The Kissing Booth, but I'm assuming it's similar to that. Uh,
yeah,
um,
but yeah,
yeah, it is a
otherwise,
book.
in general, we can just kind of say avoid the book simply because of the sexism. I mean, unless if you
Yeah,
want to see and like you want to like, as the thing is, the whole takeaway is to learn from mistakes and whatnot. And this
yeah.
book
So
is the biggest mistake of this book, and the biggest thing that we hate a lot about this
I
book
love
was the
about this book
absolute
is
blatant sex,
actually
the
is
slut
sexism,
shaming, the literally just stripping down of men
like
to
the
cheaters and
objectification
women to
of
just
men.
slut. It's terrible. There's just like the men are only there to be sexy. That's it. That's all
Yeah.
they are. They are nothing but sexy pieces of meat and idiots, complete
So
idiots.
yeah. So all I can say is that if you are writing a book or if you are like reading a book, I think it's important that we are cognizant of the fact that
Yeah,
sometimes if we're trying to simplify characters to either save space or to save readers the time that for some reason you don't want to flesh out your characters as much, it is important that you still give them enough character that they aren't just like stripped down to the bare bones stereotypes of what their genders are or what their characters could be, just because it does ultimately end up being quite jarring and for people who don't exactly like prejudice, quite irritating. But other than
yeah.
that, the book itself, other than pacing wise, like a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, it's the writing is it's all right. There's just it's a lot of telling and not showing. There's white room syndrome for descriptions
Yeah.
and whatnot. It as we
Obviously,
say, if we took the end of the book entirely, then the book actually could have been pretty good. Like if we just took the
like a
end
six
of
or
the page,
seven, but like
but it's just the beginning and the middle of this book that are so terribly boring and so utterly just full of
like
useless garbage and just
yeah,
basically you're talking about nothing that like just slut shaming people and all of that crap. It's just it doesn't get anywhere. Like the problem
yeah,
with the descriptions is they do not move the book forward. They are it's like you have to pause. It's like opening a static website rather than a dynamic one. Like essentially you have to you like pause. It's like okay, so there's a conversation. Okay, pause. We need to go for a bit of backstory. Okay, continue.
okay,
Pause, and
continue.
you have to like stop. Like there's no description that moves you in the book. It's not
Yeah,
letting us like go through the
go
motion. It's
through.
going stop, stop.
Yeah. It's very
Like just
much
keep going.
it's very much like what were those old things where like you could send more like telegraph machines? Like each thing is like a tick. Like each plot point's like a tick, and there's nothing in between the ticks to join
Yeah,
them together.
yeah. I
It's just
know.
like
It's like
tick 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 tick,
tick
and then
tick
you're
tick
like,
tick
oh, it's
tick
the end
tick.
of the book. Okay.
Okay, yeah. So I mean,
So
yeah.
yeah,
So
look,
overall on Goodreads we gave it a 2 out of 5
yeah, we did give it a
stars.
2. In terms of its sexiness, I would say, I don't know, maybe with like enough alcohol in my system, I would give it a
Yeah,
go. But like, uh,
I would like
I
reading this book drunk could
yeah, it could actually be quite an experience if
could
you
be
can
quite an
read drunk.
experience.
Uh, but I think in this case, we would have to give the trophy to Zac Efron for
Yeah,
being sexier
yeah.
than the book. Unfortunately, our apologies to Rebecca Serle. I did
But
actually
Zac
read one
Efron
of your
is
other books,
oh,
and it actually wasn't bad. It wasn't that bad.
as we said, this was her
So
debut novel,
yeah,
so
it was her debut novel. So
give her some slack, y'all.
she has gotten better. She has gotten a lot better. But yeah, just Zac Efron sexier than this book,
Yeah, like
unfortunately.
because at least Zac Efron has a couple of photos that make you go, okay, this man,
Yeah, this
he's
man is
looking pretty
sexy.
good. He's got the jawline. But then
Yeah,
I don't know why it's he's more side on profile that good. He's like
yeah, his side profile's good, but like if
it's
you
the
look at
minute he
his,
turns face forward that you like.
you're like,
Okay, I don't know what it is.
I
The
don't know
camera.
what happened.
So basically, if we get a good camera angle on Zac Efron,
Yeah, if
but
you
when
could
you're
try
mine.
and get a good camera angle on this book, and I don't know how much better it would make it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, books don't have good
Camera
camera
angles
angles. It more has like whether the author has can adjust the inner
in
the
a
camera of words. Yeah, the inner
the camera of words.
the cogs of the actual writing itself. But unfortunately, no, it
No,
doesn't.
unfortunately.
It's
Uh, but yeah, so that was episode 1.
we've made it this far,
We made
y'all.
it.
So
Thank you for joining us on the Menor Books podcast. We are here with our unicorns. We are having a fun time.
it's brilliant as
Um,
always. And of course, next week we are hoping to do some movie reviews because we want to spice things up and keep
yeah,
changing it between books and movies. And I know this week was a bit of a bit of a rant at this
yeah,
poor book, and I feel a bit bad. But next week we're gonna have something in store for you that's a bit.
yeah. Next
And
week,
it's gonna be quite.
if
I love next week's one.
if you
I don't want to.
yeah,
We don't want to
we don't
spoil what
spoil it.
is. But
If you really enjoy watching two teenage boys fangirl over whistling, you are gonna have
oh
a
yeah,
blast.
whistling is the key word, and we're just gonna leave it at that
We're
because
gonna leave it at that.
that's actually
Yeah.
such a good clue that just does not. But
So
anyway, folks, thanks again for joining us on
thank you
discussing
for
who
joining
is
us.
more sexy, whether the book or the man.
Well then,
And we'll see you next week
yeah,
on the
we
next
will see you
episode
next
of Men
Men
or Books.
or Books. A lot
Book
of
of
sync.
Books. Yeah, and
Book of
unicorns.
books, books, and unicorns.